After a cold spell such as last week's, I think it's useful to step back and look at the bigger picture, both in terms of the frequency of these cold snaps as well as winter chill in general. Now here's a measure called a cold wave index. This tracks the frequency of multi-day cold snaps that affected the lower 48 states each winter since 1970. I'll spare you the details of how this is built, but it is based on peer-reviewed research. This takes us back far enough for many to recall some of those 1970s and 80s Arctic outbreaks that are truly historic. At least over the last 50 years or so, multi-day wintry blasts have become, in general, less common. This measure, based on this measure, the last really notable cold wave was probably in the mid-1990s. Now, how about winters overall just in Pennsylvania? Well, here's the average winter temperature for the state going back to the late 1800s. Take a look at the dips in the graph, the colder winters. Yes, there are some in the last few decades, but to find a truly historically cold winter, you really have to go back to the 1970s. In fact, here's the 10 coldest winters on record in the state. There's nothing on this list more recent than 1978-79. Now, if we do top 15, the winter of 1993-1994 does show up, but we have to extend the list to top 20 for any winter from this century to appear, and that's 16 winters ago. Now, let me highlight winters that were also in the top 20 snowiest in Pittsburgh State College and Harrisburg, sort of representing 3 regions of the state. So in the modern record, these winters would probably qualify as the harshest. Now, in terms of harsh, the winter that likely eclipses all others in the East, called the hard winter by historians, was 1779-1780, the only winter in recorded American history when the waters around New York City froze over for weeks at a time. Actual weather data is scarce. We have mostly just newspapers and Revolutionary War diaries. Washington and his troops were camped at Morristown, New Jersey at that time. Now, just to give you the feel of that winter, from the New Jersey Gazette, December 22nd, 1779, the weather has been excessively cold for many days past, which has stopped navigation between Burlington and Philadelphia. That's a 15-mile stretch of the Delaware River, frozen in December. From the diary of Reverend Henry Muhlenberg in Trapp, Montgomery County, about 25 miles northwest of Philadelphia. January 6th, 7th, 1780, violent storm the whole day. The wind has picked up the snow higher than a man's head. A week later, the severe cold still continues. Our firewood is gone. January 20th, last night a stormy wind arose and the cold is so severe that men and beasts can hardly live. You get the idea. Prominent Philadelphian David Rittenhouse recorded some of the only temperature data we have that month. His average temperature at sunrise in Philadelphia that month was just 13. The modern day average is around 26. And Rittenhouse reported the temperatures only went above freezing one time that month. The modern day average is 25. Even taking into account measurement issues, weather historians generally agree that January 1780 and that winter overall were probably the coldest month and season in recorded Pennsylvania weather history. Stay tuned. Our extended forecast is next.